My name is Stephen Mathias. I'm the Assistant Secretary General for Legal Affairs at the United Nations in the Office of Legal Affairs at UN headquarters. I was at the State Department for about 20 years. Now, one great thing about the practice in the legal advisor's office at the State Department is that you can move from practice areas, specialization to specialization, all within the legal office. You can also occasionally get an overseas job. So I spent 5 years in The Hague as the U.S. legal counselor in the U.S. Embassy in The Hague. And that was where I had my first exposure to the International Court of Justice and the Iran-U.S. Claims Tribunal. And then during the time that I was in The Hague, the International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia was set up. So after I had been at the State Department for about 20 years, one of my most interesting jobs there had been as the assistant legal advisor for UN affairs. And so I saw an opening at the United Nations, and I thought, well, that could be a good fit for me, given that I've already been working on UN law, albeit from the US government's perspective. And I'd also been doing some adjunct teaching about international organization law while I was at the State Department. So that led to my going to the UN, and I've been there now for about 9 years. And one of the reasons I've stayed there is it's a very interesting place to work, and the problems shift from day to day. The day usually begins with their materials prepared overnight, press clippings and some operational reports from the field. And when you review those, you begin to get a sense, okay, this is something that I may have to give some advice on in the course of the day, or is this something I better inform myself about, or another department may be asking OLA, Office of Legal Affairs, for advice about this. So our day is somewhat reactive in terms of the news of the day, or what issues in the news have legal dimensions about which we may be asked. One continuing challenge for the UN, including the Office of Legal Affairs, has been criminal behavior by UN officials or experts or peacekeepers, in particular sexual exploitation and abuse, but not limited to that. When the current Secretary General came into office, I was part of a small group that he appointed to try to figure out a new way forward on the SEA issue, as we call it, sexual exploitation and abuse, to see if there were additional things that the UN could do to try to address more successfully a problem that we hadn't really been successful in addressing. And I think that experience working with that group is one of the reasons I enjoy the UN work, because sitting there in a room with people from different fields, but all united to try to solve the problem or make some headway, it was very satisfying. And I think we did come up with some ideas. I think we have transitioned the UN now in that area to a more victim-centered approach. And we've tried to find ways to get member states more engaged in trying their nationals for crimes that they may have committed. And we've had some success in that. I mean, obviously the problem hasn't gone away. We're still working on it, but I think we have made success. And I think that's kind of the way the UN works at its best. Getting people together from different disciplines who have different expertise, but can find a way to move forward. There are a lot of opportunities now to be involved in international law outside the traditional framework of a member state legal advisor's office or an international organization legal office. In all the negotiations that are going on now, civil society is represented, business is represented, sometimes groups that have not been well represented in the past, like indigenous people or youth, women. There are many opportunities now to get involved in the making of international law and the international legal discussion. And I think if somebody thinks that that's what they want to do, they should just jump into it in whatever way they can. Because I think once you start meeting people, you might find a way forward. I think young lawyers should not hesitate to ask older lawyers for a hand. In my own career, it developed in large part because people at one time or another were supportive of what I was trying to do or encouraging me. And I think, people are willing to do that generally if you give them the chance. And I know sometimes, and I was this way myself, I was always a little reluctant to reach out. But I think I would encourage you to just to sort of force yourself to have that conversation with someone you don't know but is in the room and that you think you might be able to strike up a conversation with. I think you never know where something like that will lead.